All right, we are recording. Thank you everyone for joining our first national professional training and release dog informational session. I have actually been doing this for the region and inviting anyone who, because I've announced it in my question and answer sessions and in my classes, and I decided to talk to the puppy program managers. Someone is unmuted. If you could mute, we greatly appreciate it. Looks like, yep, everyone just make sure that you're muted. Okay. And I should be big for everyone. I'm going to put my comments on here. Okay. So so I've been doing this for a little while in for the North Central region, and I finally was like, okay, I'm going to really get approval to do this for the entire country. And then I decided, hey, if I'm working on a Saturday, why not add these other 2 sessions in? Because what happens every 3 months? People are getting dogs, people are in the middle of raising dogs, and people are getting ready to turn in dogs. And so why not do this on a quarterly basis so that you guys don't have to join this every 3 months, but as you go through this, as you go through the raising of the puppy, you can join in on these sessions as reminders, especially with the behavioral one, or you're getting a new puppy and, you know, starting out the process. And then this will probably progress as time goes on, but we had to start somewhere. So today is the first day of me doing all 3 of these together. We are recording for those of you guys who are getting onto this. We are, my goal is that, and I'm hoping that I can do multiple recordings on this one team link, because this is the same link for the other 2 sessions later today. So I will be putting that up along with the puppy class, which I did promise someone on the Wednesday puppy class that I would get that up. And that is all onto my to-do list. So I promise I will get the first puppy class up also, and it will be on the community page. It will be in the puppy class recording section, and it will be under the national puppy classes, the ones that all of the puppy program managers are teaching. So it'll be put in there, and I'll make sure to put informational session, professional training, release dog, and then the teaching behaviors and so on and so forth. So you guys will be able to look for it there for reference back to it. So what I am going to do, I am going to share my desktop so that I can pull up the PowerPoint. I believe I'm sharing my desktop here. And this is not, oh, this is the one I want. I just added a slide right before this. So, okay. And as I'm on the spotlight, I'm like, is everyone, what am I doing? Okay, so welcome everyone to What Happens Next. So if you guys are on this and the puppy that you are raising is getting ready to turn into professional training in any one of our 6 regions, this is a culmination of information for all of the regions. So let's get ourselves started here. Our details here, and you know, just the rules and policies and all that kind of stuff. I thought I would do these first so that we can just get it over with and we can, you know, move on to the information. But it's always good, you know, to make sure that we're all on the same page. So if the dog is released from the program, puppy raisers have first right of refusal. So what will happen is we will call you up and we will say, so the dog is being released from the program because of this. If you guys could make sure to mute, we would appreciate it. Puppy raisers have first right of refusal, so we'll call you up. You will, we'll tell you why the dog was released from the program. We will ask you, are you interested in adopting the dog? If you say yes, We will work through the process. Now, you have to be in good standing. So if, for example, you were really bad about turning in progress reports and didn't turn in any throughout the time and didn't contact your puppy program manager when they replied back to you to find out why, or didn't go to any obedience classes, or weren't following our policies, things like that, that could have a potential for us to go, we're not returning the dog back to you. Okay. In my region, I've never done that before. Everyone, we've had, in reality, it's really going to have to be abuse for us to go, we're not going to return the dog back to you. Now, one thing that could happen if dogs are hugely overweight, 20, 30 pounds overweight, which has happened on occasion in the past. We've had dogs that have been that significantly overweight. Maybe in that situation, a weight could cause it. But I don't want anyone worrying about this. It is so unbelievably few and rare between that we would even consider this. So it's just our clause to go. We could even say to a puppy raiser, but please, again, do not worry about this. Okay. Puppy raisers can suggest a friend. Now, this is slightly different in every region, okay? I believe Northwest may not even take friend suggestions, okay? Now, in the North Central region, for example, we will take friend suggestions, but we're going to pair the friend suggestion against who are the other people on our waiting list. Because we have other people that, we have donors and graduates and puppy raisers and, lots of people who are involved in the organization. And if what we want to do is we want to, what's the word I want to look for here, is we want to reward people who are a part of the organization. We also want, and more specifically, we really want to make sure that these people are staying in touch with canine companions, that they're just not going to fall off the face of the earth and we never hear from them again, okay? Now, the puppy raiser might not hear from that person, but we as canine companions will. And many of you guys who have had release dogs before, with Corinne, our research department would send out emails to everyone and be like, hey, how's the release dog doing? And we ask of the contract for you to let us know when a release dog passes away. We also like to know when release dogs are having medical issues, because these are things that we bring back to our breeding department, and it only makes our breeding program better. When people just completely fall off out of the way, they completely disappear. Yes, it happens even with the best of intentions, but the thing is that we would really like to try hard, at keeping the dogs and the people really engaged into it. So just know that even though you may suggest someone, Canine Companion is going to have the final say in where the dog goes. So we could trump that person. Without getting into this, because we could get into a whole long conversation about this, what I would recommend is you just talk to your puppy program manager. If you are at that point where the dog is getting released from the program, you have someone who is interested in adopting it, and then we will discuss, okay, what is their activity level with canine companions? Are they willing to follow up with us? Are they willing to start supporting us? That kind of a thing. So we're going to move on from that. Talk with your puppy program manager if you have more questions about what is it like in your region, about who can you suggest if you are not adopting the dog back. All right. The other thing that goes apart into that is temperament. If the dog is released for, let's just say, being fearful of children, and the adoptive home that you would like the dog to go to has children, we may go, we don't feel that, and even those people might be supporters. We could go, we would rather go a different route because we feel it'll be in the best interest of the dog. Okay, we're going to move on. Puppy raisers do not need to fill out an application, nor do they pay an adoption fee. Now, if you are adopting a dog from another puppy raiser, then yes, you would pay the adoption fee for, even though you're a puppy raiser, you will still have to pay an adoption fee if it's any other dog other than the ones that you raised. So the puppy that you are currently raising, you do not have to pay an adoption fee. Everyone else does have to pay an adoption fee. They have to have a signed contract. And they really, 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 and I can't stress that enough, have their application in prior to the dog turning in for professional training. Now, one of the reasons why we do this also is because you will get a lot of people who say that they're interested in adopting the released dog, the puppy that you're raising, but then when it comes to it, they're really not that interested. And if they can't fill out an application by the time the dog turns in, then that kind of shows to us that they're not really interested in supporting the organization, because we would like those applications in prior to turn in. And that's kind of an indicator to us of their cooperation. Now, on the other side of this is what is our policy about adopting dogs. And again, this is something you can talk with your puppy program manager about, because there are going to be situations in which there may be exceptions. So if you have we have a 2 release dog policy, which means you can only have 2 adopt back 2 release dogs. All right. Now, if you have a 13-year-old release dog in your home and the puppy you have is, getting released from the program, at least in the North Central region, we're going to take that into consideration. And because we know that while we would love the 13-year-old dog to live forever, the reality is they're not. And so in certain situations like that, we may make exceptions. The other issue may be medical reasons. If there is a bizarro medical problem, we may consider you to be the best home for that dog. And so we would make that exception for that. The general rule overall is a 3 pet dog limit. So you can have 3 pet dogs and a canine companion's puppy. Sometimes we do have a little bit of a leeway where there might be a 4th pet, and the 5th dog is the canine companion's puppy. But that is, very limited situations. And usually it was grandfathered in because we've had people, the rule used to be different many, many, many moons ago. But in reality, and anyone coming into the organization will get declined if they have 4 pets and want to raise a puppy. So just know that if we allow a 4th pet in the home with the canine companion's puppy, it's usually because we've worked with you for a really, really long time. Anyway, all right, we're going to move on. Now, these are kind of rare situations in which, unfortunately, we have to say them. And so that's why I'm like, we're going to just get this off our chest right here, right now, and just put it out there so people understand, because sometimes this happens. If for some reason at any point you are unable to continue to raise you are unable to continue to keep a released dog, the dog must be returned to canine companions. Puppy raisers should not rehome a dog without speaking to canine companions first. Okay, so let's just say you've had a released dog in your home for 3 years and something's going on, and your daughter or, a family member or your best friend, is you wanting to adopt the dog because for whatever reason you can't keep them. Talk with your puppy program manager about this, okay? The thing that we don't want to do is just find out that people are passing the dogs off, taking adoption fees, all of that kind of stuff, putting them to Craigslist. That doesn't happen, but I'm just saying it. We don't want those types of things to happen. If you can't keep the dog, talk with canine companions and we will come up with a plan. Now, any breach of the release dog contract could invoke immediate termination of volunteer services and removal of the dog from your home. And this is really where, and unfortunately we have to put this in here, is that if you disagree with us in regards to why a dog was released, and you feel that the dog should be a working dog, and you find a person with a disability who is, who wants the dog, and you give our release dog to that person as a working dog, then that is a big issue for canine companions. And so that really could throw someone into going, we're going to remove a puppy from your home, and you would not be able to raise again. Unfortunately, we have to say that because on rare occasions it happens. Where do we put this in the whole situation? We don't, it's not a easy thing to slide in places. So it's like, let's just do it here. Get it out into the world that if this happens, please know there are consequences to it. All right. That's the nitty gritty. Let's go into more of the fun stuff here. Okay. Well, okay, I take that back. We've got to talk about repeat puppy raising. If you guys are interested in raising again, everyone will need to fill out a repeat puppy raiser applications. Okay. Now, this is where it's something that just recently changed. Okay. So last year, because of the pandemic, we had put out that you couldn't submit an application until the dog was a year old. We have bumped that now down to 9 months of age. All right. And I'm going to be straight up honest with my North Central puppy raisers. I was supposed to put this out onto the community page yesterday. Most of you guys, because the other puppy program managers are a little bit more on it than I am sometimes, might have already seen this on the community page about this change. So we were like, all right, this is a perfect opportunity with me doing this and everyone putting it out that you can now start submitting your applications when the dogs turn 9 months of age. Every region is still a little, we're not where we were before the pandemic, okay? So and I'll talk about that in down below just a little bit, but you can get your applications in now at 9 months of age. You have to be in good standing, so you're going to obedience classes, prior sports, leash policy, feeding policy, veterinary policies, things like that. You're okay with returning the dogs. You don't rehome the dogs or put them off as assistance dogs for some other people. You're going to be able to raise again. Okay, so if you follow our rules and you're trying your best, those are the big things that we're looking for. But we will communicate if there's some sort of a problem where we're like, we can't continue the relationship. But if you've been doing stuff, you're here today. We super appreciate that. That shows your commitment. So don't worry about that. Again, similar to the release dog thing, not have more than 3 pet dogs, remember a release dog limit, and not have a puppy in the house under a year of age. All right. If you guys are interested in getting a puppy of your own and you're wanting to raise a puppy, that is okay. But just talk with your puppy program manager about how to best manage it. We don't want puppies under a year being raised together because it does, we want the pet puppy to have a lot of focus and the canine companion's puppy needs to have a lot of focus also, okay? So please really, really make sure that you speak with your puppy program manager and then you work out a good timing for how do you plan for having a puppy, canine companion's puppy, and a pet dog puppy in the same home, which as I literally said that, realized that I did not change the slide to the new branding. Anyway, so just know that, talk with your puppy program manager. We're currently still a very minimal overlapping. Our region is slowly changing a little bit. I know that Becca also mentioned that her overlapping situation is going to be changing slightly, where the numbers on our wait list have come down. And so we're moving through more quickly, but now other regions like Southeast and Northwest still have 1 million people on their wait list, and so there's probably not going to be any significant overlappings. But overall, as a policy for the organization, we will not be doing any more than 3-month overlaps. Okay, now of course, unless we get into some desperate situation, because you never say never, but the general rule is no overlapping for more than 3 months, at least in the North Central region. And you can talk with your puppy program managers about this, is finding out our overlapping is, in our region is several weeks now. We're probably pretty good about being able to get to people, depending on when they got their application in. Just know that in the past, when people could call us up 3 weeks before turn in and be like, hey, I want to raise another puppy. Can I get a puppy around turn in? Many times before, we're like, sure, we can make it happen. That's not going to happen. You're going to be down. You're going to probably wait at least 3 to 6 months if to get a puppy. So talk with your puppy program manager and just be aware of the minimalness of overlapping puppies. And then we are still not taking requests for specific breeders, color specific puppies, or breed requests more specifically related to golden retrievers, because we just do not get them on a consistent basis. And we're not going to trump a whole bunch of people on the list if you are interested in a golden, we're going to just continue to follow down the list. And so your wait could be significantly long. I don't actually remember the last full Goldens that the North Central region has gotten. So anyway, those are the big things. And also with the color, I'm going to very specifically say it's black. Okay. It is so unbelievably difficult still to figure out what puppies are coming to the regions. And when we do know, there's a high likelihood that they're going to get flipped around right literally the day of or the day before they come out to the regions. So even though we might be thinking, oh, you're going to get, Fido, you might actually end up with Spot. So just know that we can't predict color. It's too difficult. All right, now we'll go on to more of the fun stuff. So as you guys go into this with returning the dogs for professional training, you guys are going to we always have this conversation, what is nature versus nurture? And we know this similar to, how we have grown up and our siblings and then our families, and seeing how, we can set ourselves up for success. We can do all the right things, but in the end, our genes are going to play a part of it. But we can't blame nature and we can't blame nurture. Okay. And so it's a combination, and every situation is going to be slightly different. And then we have our own personal choices and preferences and how that individual handles what their genes gave them and what their nurturing gave them. We're working with individual dogs that have minds of their own and preferences of their own, that no matter what we do or try, we can inhibit some of those, but there are going to be other influences that are going to adjust to whether or not the dog is going to be able to work in the program or not. So, okay. First off, I'm going to state that I'm not a geneticist. This is how I've come to understand, what we have been working on, who our dogs are, what our vet clinic has been doing, how we train, who our graduates are like, and putting all of this together. Okay. So how I understand with the sharing of DNA, it is not a simple equation. All right. It is something that is pretty much random. Okay. And I find this interesting because I do a lot of ancestry stuff, and my family has done the DNA testing, and I should be a quarter Serbian, if you look at it just in general, a quarter Serbian, a quarter, Irish, and half German. Okay. Well, I feel I take after the much German side of the family, and my sister, who's 4 years older than me, we always go, oh my gosh, she's such the Kenny side, our Irish side of the family. So, but when we actually did the DNA, well, I feel I am more German. My DNA actually showed that I am more Irish than I am German, and my sister is more German than she is Irish. So, but when you look at us, it's just, there's these things that you're like, okay, that's just, that was unexpected. Okay. And so when you are looking at the siblings in a group, now there was a period of time when we were doing double breedings, which means a female was bred to two males. Over the last 2 years, we've been really focusing down, again, just because of the pandemic and issues, is one, it's one sire and one dam that are bred together. And so essentially, you know that all of the siblings are related. Okay. They're not half siblings. So when you look at those siblings, so even with yourselves, when you look at your siblings, your human siblings, that you know that there are just differences between you. My sister is super independent. My brother is super aloof. I'm the youngest in the group, some weird combination of the two of them. And, my parents tried all the same. Now, of course, there's the first, second, and third going out into all of that, which plays a part into that whole nurture thing. Is it the first puppy you raise? Is it the 20th puppy you raise? So there's so many different things that play into what are these successes and, what are the weaknesses and all that kind of stuff. And just knowing, and I think really the big thing is to go, when you look at the siblings in the group, and especially if you are in a region that has a sibling and you see that sibling on a regular basis, is to not compare them. And this was probably much more important when you had siblings, but they were really half siblings. And so you would have one that looked like this perfect little creature that always was perfect. And that puppy raiser had this wild banshee at the end of their leash. And they're like, why did I get the bad dog? And we're like, you didn't get the bad dog. And then that other person, so that might have been a first-time puppy raiser with the banshee, and then the multiple-time puppy raiser with the perfect dog. But in reality, our repeat raisers are so good at making the dogs look really, really good. And that is phenomenal and great, But the thing is that can sometimes offshoot with some of our first-time puppy raisers thinking, I'm doing an absolutely horrible job. This dog is never going to make it. There are so many factors that play a part of it, because when I work with a lot of our repeat raisers, we kind of know when those repeat raisers turn dogs in, there's usually a typical trend with them that we see. Oh, that's a Marty Merlot dog, or that's a Pam Dallas dog. We could tend to know, that's pretty, yeah, that's right. So-and-so doesn't typically do a great positioning. We had one puppy raiser, and she was horrible at nail trimming. Okay. And so we knew every dog that came in would have some nail trimming issues. Now, we worked it out with her to not actually no longer do the nails and have someone else who was confident at doing the nails. So we fixed the problem. But that was that thing that we knew, okay, there was this predictability that came into this, that we were like, okay, this is this puppy raiser. This is what we know about them. This is what we know about their family, and just kind of how that influences the dog. So there's all of these influences that come into who is this dog and how is it going to respond to change? How is it going to adapt? How predictable are the behaviors? We're going to get all into that. Okay. I like this slide because it really does also highlight to everyone that a lot of times in the dog world, we always are saying a golden retriever is just a happy-go-lucky dog. They are the nicest dogs in the world. They're the sweetest dogs in the world, okay? Well, golden retrievers also tend to have a little bit of anxiousness to them. They tend to, I'm generalizing here, they tend to not adapt to change as well. They tend to not take food as easily, okay? So they've also got some other things in there that make them a little difficult. Labrador retrievers, same thing. They tend to be bold and confident and not think about what they're doing, okay? But they're loyal and easily trained, and so we like to focus on all of the good things about them, but we have to understand that there's underliers. Now, the other thing, too, is we can have golden retrievers that aren't anxious, that are bold. We have Labrador retrievers that aren't bulls in a china shop, that they are sweet little passive things, you know? So even within the breed, you're going to find a variation. And then when you look at them with siblings, you're going to see a variation with them. And I put this in here that not that there, well, apparently there is a Myers-Briggs for dogs, not all breeds. I tried to find one for a border collie. It didn't happen. They did not have labs, but they did have a golden. So that's why I used this picture here. But if you think about us, our personality types, we're not just one thing. And I've shared with many of you guys before that I'm an anxious person. And sometimes I have debilitating anxiety. I've learned how to manage it. And most of the time people are like, a lot of times like doing this, like coming up here, I was like, oh my God, I'm so anxious. Like, I'm so anxious. Am I going to be able to do this? The computer's not going to be working right. The world is ending. Like my brain started going crazy. And a lot of people don't know that about me. And, or when I'm up in front of the crowd, the level of social, all of a sudden this is my anxious brain as everything's flowing through here. Social anxiety. I'm an introvert. I'm an introverted extrovert. Okay, so I'm going to go home and crash after this kind of thing. So my Myers-Briggs is INFP, okay? And so when we look at the dogs, you've got to also think about that. In certain environments, they're going to excel. In other environments, they might struggle some because of what are the things that cause them to react to their environment or what makes them feel unsure. And then depending on their personality type, do they act out in submissive ways? Do they act out in bold, confident, dominant, assertive ways? Those kinds of things. And so it's when I get nervous, I shut down. When my sister gets nervous, she gets angry. You know, so you got to think about that. And then we've got to teach the dog how to manage within that situation. We have someone who's got their microphone on. If you guys could turn it off, I'd appreciate it. Okay, so just know that the dog's they have personalities. It's just not one thing, and that defines them in every environment. Okay, so think about dogs in this way, okay? So we've got a scale, let's just say from 1 to 10. Fearful being on one side, bold, dominance, whatever you want to say, is going to be on the far side, okay? Now, in the middle here, so I put the graduate range. This range is in between bold and fearful, or what we kind of call a submissive confident dog, or a dog that can handle lots of things in its environment, can handle change, but is also willing to please and focus on their handler, okay? So we've got our graduate range. This is where we will typically see dogs that are going to graduate. When they fall outside of that graduate range, those are going to be the dogs that get released from the program, okay? Now, the further you get to 1 and the further you get to 10, it's dogs that we're never going to see, okay? You know, these are dangerous dogs, which aren't part of the Canine Companions program because our breeding program has done so well. Now, when a dog is born, they're born with a temperament range. So they're not born with just one number, let's just say, okay, to make this simple. So that's their nature. Those are the genes. If they were born with a level of prey drive, which every single dog is born with a level of prey drive, it's just how strong is that prey drive is going to vary significantly. Then we get into the nurture part, which is the arrow, okay, the yellow arrow. The yellow arrow is us as an influence, okay? So now, us as an influence, we are going to be able to influence this dog in that range, okay? Unless we cause some massive trauma of some kind that is, beyond, that is just really significant. That is going to cause a dog to fall out of that range. But our puppy raisers are not causing trauma to the dogs that is going to ruin them. The dogs already have a predetermined temperament range, and our influence is going to be within that range. So when we look at, okay, well, I'm actually going to go back. Okay. This dog here, okay, so we've got the graduate range at the bottom, and then we've got the nature of this dog, which falls between a 4 and a 6, okay? This dog, no matter who raises this dog is going to graduate, okay? Because even though the arrow is going to slide back and forth depending on who has that dog, the natural temperament is inclined, it's going to graduate. Now, because this is a spectrum, we're going to have some dogs that are going to fall in a different side, further up or further down, okay? So when we look at the temperament range for this dog, the dog's temperament range is between a 5 and an 8, okay? Now, this is where influence, the puppy raiser influence is going to be a part of it. Now, the other aspect of this is also the graduate influence too, okay? Because how the dog acts with me versus acting with their graduate when they have a temperament range of 5 to 8 is going to adjust that arrow. So the arrow is going to be able to flip back and forth depending on the person who's handling it, okay? So when we look at this dog here, okay, and when we're doing all the evaluations in professional training, and this is when we look at that INFP of, what are the dog's strengths and weaknesses? How are they influenced by the world around them given their nature? Okay. And so what will happen is this is when we come into when we start looking at team training to determine in worst case scenario, if the dog is handled with poor timing, poor reward, not poor, that's not the right words, but timing is just off, whether it's correction or reward. What's going to happen is this dog is going to flip back and forth from here. My gosh. Flip back and forth from, side to side. So this is where if we are really worried that the dog is going, in this dog, I probably really should have moved his arrow just slightly over to kind of talk about like these borderline dogs. This is where the puppy raisers, we need you to try really, really, really hard. And then we have to look at the dog's strengths and weaknesses and who are the people on the waiting list. And is that dog going to be able, is the graduate going to be able to manage the dog's behavior if they fall over into this borderline area, okay? So that's where it comes into the placement type, because I'm going to take one step back. If you guys were in my puppy class that I had this past Wednesday, the very first class of our series, I was holding puppy Rowan, who knows me really, really, really well. And I'm a good handler. I've been doing this for a super long time. She was attentive to me and she was offering behaviors and everything. Then later on in the session, I gave her, Rowan, the puppy, to Melissa, my puppy program assistant. And Rowan was wallowing all over the floor because Melissa is a new handler. She doesn't have the timing or, the understanding of when to stop the dog. So Rowan was totally taking advantage. So my handler influence was a 6, okay? Where Melissa's handling influence, I feel that this is slightly big. I want to change this a little bit, but was probably a 7 if I compare this to Melissa. Okay. Now, it wasn't saying that Rowan in that moment was going to get released from the program, because she was rubbing her gentle eater. Rowan turns in May. So she's an older puppy. So this is not a little 8-week-old puppy. This is a dog almost ready for professional training. And so she was taking advantage. That's what we need to know. That's that range. With me, she's going to be great and, follow the rules, but someone who doesn't necessarily know, she's going to take advantage a little bit, and we need to be able to figure that out. Okay. So this is where it comes down to, like, if we had to kind of narrow the dogs down into what do we typically see? Okay, so we've got the versatile dog. This is the dog that we all hope for, okay? This is the dog that falls right smack in the middle of the graduate range. That is the dog that's going to fall in there. That is usually a dog that can go with essentially anyone we put that dog with. They're easy to manage. They're willing to please. They're not reactive. They are essentially kind of a lug, maybe a little bit of a dud. They just can go with any person. We wish, absolutely, absolutely wish that that could happen, okay? But unfortunately, it doesn't happen, because as I move back on the screen here, what we also have to look at is our breeding range too, and actually should make a slide for this because I had this in my other one. So our breeding program is really, really trying to breed dogs that fall within that graduate range. But some years, because we can't keep the breeding program stagnant, we're going to err a little bit over to the fearful side. We're going to slide over, the next year, we're going to slide more over towards the bold side. And so what happens is our breeding program has to adjust, okay? So that's why you're going to see some years where we're releasing dogs for more fear behaviors. We adjust for that. And then all of a sudden, we're starting to see more dogs get released for bold behaviors. And then we adjust. We try so hard to keep it in that range, but again, genetics, you don't know what's going to happen. Something might come up in a second generation that is going to impact that we couldn't predict because we can't see everything and you don't know gene sequencing and all that kind of stuff. We try our best to figure it out to get that range. But there's always going to be the shifting. And so that's where you guys kind of have to see if you're, oh my gosh, what's going on? Why are there so many fearful dogs? I've been at this for 23 years now with Canine Companions, and we have gone the gamut back and forth, trainability, lack of trainability, but we're still making our goals because we have to adjust for that. But it makes placing the dogs with our graduates a little bit harder in certain years over others. We would love to have the versatile dog, but most dogs need some type of management, okay? Because again, they're not this, while we love to say that they are perfect, and yes, the puppy who you raise is perfect, but the puppy raiser who's also on this call looking at the puppy that's getting ready to turn in and go, you are perfect. They're all perfect, but they all are imperfect too. They need something that causes them a management. Then we have dogs that are good dogs, but they just need the right person. They're a dog that falls right out of the spectrum. And maybe that is a dog that actually doesn't go with our program. So maybe they go into search and rescue. Maybe they go with some of our other regions, work with other assistance dog organizations. So I know Northwest works with diabetic alert dogs. And so some of our dogs have gone on to that. They need the right person. And maybe it's not who is on our wait list. It could be a search and rescue dog or someone on our wait list who does agility, things like that. Okay. So they're great dogs, easily to train, super motivated, blah, blah, whatever it might be. It's just for the people we need to go. Is there someone on our list that could work with this behaviors, or would they be better elsewhere or as a release dog? Which then comes down to the release dogs, which are just amazing pet dogs. Our dogs, regardless of what they are released for, are absolutely amazing dogs. They do not compare to any dogs that are out there. But we have to understand that, there just may not be cut out for the people who are on our wait list, which every year that wait list is going to go for people that need a lot of help. They need more of a versatile dog. And then we're like, oh my gosh, we have a lot of harder people to maintain on this. And then we go the opposite direction where we have dogs that have a lot of people that can handle a lot of management, that don't need that versatile dog. They can handle something. But we're always trying to keep everyone here in the middle, because if we could give a dog to everyone, we would. But the nature of our setup, of how much staff we have, how much is our ability to do follow-up, what level of support a graduate has, we could go into a whole thing of how do we place the dogs to talk about our graduates, and the broad spectrum of our graduates is going to play a whole other role, which is not even a part of this whole lecture, that goes along with this. Okay. So I use this, and I do have to say I need to, the branding change is affecting my ability to have current pictures. So we're going to see a whole bunch of older capes on here. And these are kind of old capes, because the Border Collie in the back is a puppy that I raised. So he's 12 years old now. On very, very rare occasions, we take in outside breeds. Okay. And so he happens to be, and his only designation was going to be a hearing dog. Needless to say, he got released from the program. So just know he did not become, because that's why we don't just take one dog into the program, because that dog may not be successful. He was not successful, but he is a lovable dog. So anyway, this is a perfect example of genetic variation here. This is a perfect example of different handler influences. All of these dogs have their strengths. All of these dogs have their weaknesses. Some of them are going to graduate. Some of them are going to get released from the program. But they're all wonderful. So there are a vast amount of genetic variation. And I like to tell this to everyone, because when we have puppy raisers that get to this point, it's like they want the dog to graduate. And we want you to have that passion that the dog graduates. But the thing is that you also have to go, you're working with a living creature, that our roles and the people who we're currently serving may not be the right fit for that dog. And because of a variety of reasons of placement of dogs, that we hand you a dog that could be bold or fearful, you have to kind of adjust your handling to that. And so you are part of this whole process, and we just have to go, we can only do what we can do with what we have been given, okay? The biggest thing that we're asking you guys to do is try. That's the biggest thing. Follow our rules, try and set the dogs up for success. It's not a perfect situation, but because we're working with living creatures, we just have to understand that it's not going to play out the way we really hoped it would be. I'll give you an example on the human side of this. My father, for the longest time, was like, why aren't you going to vet school? I did the vet tech program, so an associate's degree. I have a bachelor's too. But anyway, he was like, why don't you just want to be a veterinarian? I was like, I don't want to be a veterinarian. And for the longest time, I really think that he felt that, one, I was missing out on life, that I wasn't going to have a successful, I was going to struggle because I wasn't going to get paid as much as a veterinarian would. And so I didn't take the path he thought I should take. Okay. But now he realizes that I am a successful adult at an organization that I love, with a support of people who support me, you guys, and I own a house, and so my role wasn't the direction that he wanted me to go. So kind of think about that with the dogs. We want them to graduate, but maybe it's not the right thing for that particular dog. Okay. So again, here's more without a border collie, our genetic variation. And again, we do what we can with what we've been given, and we just try our best. And if we had more black fluffies, I would so absolutely be in love, because I love the black fluffies, but it just doesn't happen. It's genetics. Okay, so I really like this, which kind of goes back into now where we start going into professional training. So it's not the strongest of the species that survives, nor the most intelligent that survives. It is the one that is the most adaptable to change. Okay, change is hard. Change is hard for us as we are going into new rollout of different training philosophies here at Canine Companions. We as trainers are trying to adjust our brain. And some people are going to go, I can't handle that. And other people are going to go, bring it on. Let's do that. It's natural. Some people can adapt to change quicker than others. It's going to be the same thing with the dogs. There are no bad dogs, okay? There are no flunkies. The biggest thing that always, my heart hurts a little bit when puppy raisers will say, and I know they say it jokingly, but especially when they say it to someone who is outside of the organization and doesn't understand the whole process, when they say, oh, the dog's failed, or the dog was a flunky, oh, it was a bad dog, he couldn't do it. It's not that. All dogs are perfectly imperfect. And like I said, our worst release dogs are the best pet dogs. It's this perception that we have of perfection, and no one is going to live up to perfection, okay? So think about, it is going to be okay if this dog doesn't make it through the program. All right, so now the dog has turned in, all right? And so this is more where you guys are like, all right, let's finally get to this part stuff. What happens when the dogs get here? So the dogs come, and this is a little bit of a generalization. I'm going to totally say that because I couldn't put the schedule for every single region, but this is a generalization of what a day in the life of one of our trainers, okay? So it might vary some between region, but for the most part, 8 a.m., our trainers are arriving. They're getting themselves all situated. They are getting out and they are doing the exercise yard groups, okay? So in the morning, especially in the North Central region, the dogs they immediately get exercise. We'll talk about kennel staff here in a little bit. About 9 a.m., the dogs are all done with their running in their yards. They play between 6 and 8 dogs per group. They're out for 20 minutes, 20 to 40 minutes, let's just say, depending on the weather. We aren't all blessed with Northern California or Southern California weather. Let's just say that. It's kind of cold outside. And so the dogs, they get outside to run. Groups, toys, playing. The trainers are out there. And it's just play. Okay, there's no training or anything like that happens. We're just managing behaviors, things like that. 9 o'clock training begins. And it's so hard. Okay, I'm sharing my screen. When I take this off, I'll show you the training room. So this is the room that I'm currently in, is the first semester training room, which I'll talk about in a minute. But to go back to the schedule here, so they train in the morning. So the dogs are all out getting trained. They're getting walked. They're getting exercised again. We keep the training fun and engaging, but we also give them time to have downtime. So it's a lot, the dogs are out tethered to the walls or in downs in the middle of the room, things like that, or in a kennel. Then the trainers go to lunch, and then this is a little bit different depending on if there's an apprentice or if if it's a full trainer. So if it's a full trainer, between 1 and 5 o'clock, they're training, feeding, exercising again, doing emails, doing phone calls, things like that. But a good chunk of the afternoon is back to the training, our kennel staff do, for the North Central region, the kennel staff exercise the dogs in the afternoon so that the trainers can do other, other things that they need to do if we've got meetings or planning for team training, things like that. Our apprentices have to rotate through the different departments. So those of you guys in the North Central region, we're familiar with Jen. Now Catherine's rotating through the program. And so from 3 to 5, so for 2 hours, Jen comes and helps me do puppy program stuff. Now Catherine's doing puppy program stuff. And then we'll rotate through Sophia and Zach until we don't have longer any apprentices. And then I don't know what I'll do. So we've got from 3 to 5 apprentice rotations. If they're not doing that, then they are exercising and, training the professional training dogs. So a day in the life of the kennel staff. So our kennel staff arrive 6:30. They are between 6:30 and 9. They are feeding and cleaning the kennels. From 9 o'clock to 12, they are doing food prep, they're grooming, they're walking, they're bathing dogs. They're doing some light, maintenance of the kennel buildings. They're helping with vet runs. They are doing medication, helping our kennel supervisor, make sure that, what dogs need what at certain points. They go to lunch. Then from 1 to 5 p.m., they're feeding. We feed approximately, I think we feed at 7:30 a.m. and 4 p.m. But regardless, you guys feed the schedule that you guys are feeding until turn in. All of the dogs adjust to the feeding, so just know that. So don't feel like you need to change anything up to enter professional training. In North Central, we feed at 4 p.m. The dogs get exercise, they get walked, again, more grooming, bathing. They help also, again, I put the vet runs. And then 5 to 8, they're doing emails and paperwork, cleaning, building upkeep. The dogs, all of the regions have indoor, outdoor runs. So we have the kennel door in the middle to go from the indoor to the outdoor open most of the time. At night, the dogs are locked inside. They have automatic waterers, and I'm pretty confident all of the regions use these Kurundra, I can't remember the name of these beds, so the dogs get a little bit elevated. I'm almost 90% sure all the regions do use that. We now finally can do it because our kennels are big enough to put it in our old building. You couldn't do that. Okay. So training rooms and progression. So this room right here, which I'm not sure what you guys you're seeing the PowerPoint, but I'll turn this off. So when we're done, I'll turn this off and I'll show you this room. The main reason why I decided to show this is because we're literally right before we started today, we were talking about one of the women on on this session was like talking about the training rooms and stuff like that. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is a great thing for me to put in. And so I quickly added this. So the room that I'm currently in is what we called our first semester training room. So similar to what you guys do with training, we don't just go start training them immediately. We need to set them up for success, build on progression, and get them to where they're going to graduate, okay? So we have a first semester training room. It's quiet. There's not a lot going on. You could just focus on the dogs without a lot of other things happening around you other than the other trainers training next to you. Then we go into the second semester training room. So for us, it's in a separate building. And so there's a lot more distractions, a bigger area. It's more lifelike, realistic. We move from there, and then we start going out into, as we progress through professional training, we do more and more field trips out, getting them exposed to the world. So we start out with low distractions, very focused, and then we slowly build till we are out and about doing all the commands out and about in the world. So similar to what you guys did with the puppies are little, you start more confined and very structured, and then you start adding and adding and adding and adding until they're getting ready for professional training. Well, then we come all back to doing that again, focused and structured, and then building and building and building. It's all the same, all of the steps. from puppy to graduation. Okay. So for the first week's observations, so you just turn the dogs in. What are we looking at for the dogs? How does the dog adapt to change? Okay, we're looking for kennel stress. Are they eating, drinking, toileting? Okay. We're also looking at how quickly does the dog bond to the new handler? Are they completely aloof to the kennel staff? Are they completely aloof to the trainers when they're starting to get them out? We're looking at how cooperative is the dog with people they don't know. What are their leash manners like with people that they don't know? I have had dogs that I have seen in puppy class walk beautifully on leash, and then you put them with our kennel staff and they're pulling and yanking and jumping and doing all that kind of stuff. That's that temperament range. How are they handling living in the kennels? Are they showing any displacement behaviors, excessive sniffing, playing, mounting, vocalizing, things like that? I had to put the camera right in front. How do they interact with other dogs? Are they aggressive, aloof behaviors? Are they protecting toys or space? We're looking for all of these things. The first week of professional training is a lot of observation and not a lot of management or training is happening. We want to see, without the influence of the puppy raiser, how does the dog handle change and new people? Because what's going to happen, they're going to experience the same thing when they enter professional training. Of course, it's going to be different, but it's similar. What we typically see at this transition, we will see again when we do the transition into team training. There's 2 weeks there, and then, thank you. Yeah. You want to put her in that kennel over there? Yeah, sure. And then when they go and they graduate, you run the potential that when they go home, do some of these behaviors come up? So we've got to go, how predictable is this going to be? And so these are the things that are looking. They don't know the handler. How are they going to act? So we start doing the breeder evaluations, the medical clearances. So we do blood work, OFA, pen hip, eye certification, heart certification. We check their semen because, yes, North Central once sent a dog out to California and he was not producing anything. And so he did not become a breeder. Then we have, this is something that actually is a little bit different than years in the past. Normally, what would happen would be the dogs would be taken into the breeding program, but there is a structure in all females that there's this band, and I'm not going to go into it because I don't know the details, but that can still rule them out, but our vet clinic needs to know that. So even though a dog, let's just say in North Central, goes all the way out to California to become a breeder, that doesn't mean they actually become a breeder. They've got to have this, they have to have this check when they get out to California to make sure that they are going to be the structure of that area, because I don't know what the technical term of it is right for birthing puppies without causing or doing any sort of structural change, which apparently that's a thing in breeding. But so just know we're looking out for the best interest of the dog. And is it good for the female to be a breeder? So those are the two things that might actually happen. Now, the semen collection we will do here in Ohio just to make sure that we're not sending a dog again out to California. That's not going to produce puppies. But the vaginal structure is something our California team wants to evaluate to be comfortable with. And so a dog could go out there, be declined from the breeding program, and then they'll get sent back to the region. So that's something that's a little different that we've never talked about before, but it is part of the process now. Okay, so we're doing the breeder evaluations along with, now we're into like the second, third, fourth week of professional handling, and we're looking at how are they progressing with cooperation, okay? So we need to allow the dogs to adjust to the kennel, see how do the behaviors stay, Or do they change as time goes on and they start figuring out, oh, the rules do still apply? We begin to do medical evaluations, clearances, temperament tests, physical handling evaluations. We evaluate basic commands. We begin introduction of the working commands. That's usually about 3 or so weeks into training. And in about 3 months it's about 2 months into training, we send the breeder evaluations to our breeding department. And it's usually 3 months into professional training before a dog is selected into the breeding program. Now, for those of you guys on the West Coast, because of your location in regards to our national office, this might be a little bit, I take that back. Probably not, because they're all doing the same thing. All the breeder evaluations are coming in at the same time. So essentially, it's about 3 months for everyone to be determined who's actually going to go out to California to become a breeder. All right. So here are examples of evaluation activities. So this is within, let's just say, those first 3 months. We're starting to teach the commands, but we're also looking at all of the things that you guys have worked with them. We're looking at how are they transitioning into the kennel environment? How are they handling change? We evaluate them with a stroller, with sweeping a broom, stepping over them, having them walk over a grate, having them do stairs, different things that you guys are doing so that we can go, okay, what did the puppy raisers see? What are we seeing? How is the dog bonding with us? Are we still seeing those behaviors? And then we just keep progressing on with it. Okay. Evaluation experiences. So we will do, especially for the North Central region, we'll go through, do some field trips in the very, very beginning to see, okay, how, this is what they're like here in the kennel. What are they like out in public before we start doing our training? And then we back off on public outings with the dogs for a couple of months, and then we start amping them back up again. So by the time, usually for the North Central region, we are going on field trips at least once a week the last month to 2 months of professional training, so that they're getting that worldly experience. So we do some field trips initially for evaluation purposes. We do a good number of months that's just here on campus training the working commands. And then the last couple of months that the dogs are here, we're trying to get them out and about into the world as much as possible so that they're prepared to go into team training, which is the beginning of the real world. So these are all the different things that, they get evaluated on within those first couple of weeks. The experiences. What we're looking for when the dogs are going out on field trips, so how do they react to noises? How do they ride in the vehicle? How do they handle different surfaces? What is their handler focus? Are they really great focused here in professional, here in the building, but then on a field trip, they could care less that the handler exists? We've got to take all of that into consideration as we continue to progress through their time with us. So why do dogs get released from the program? They get released for all different types of reasons that all depend on the level of manageability, the ability to handle change, and predictability, okay? So again, predictability really is the biggest thing that we need to understand with the dogs. The level of the behavior, of course, is something. So if we have a dog that has a high prey drive and it sees the squirrels and it's just constantly darting after the squirrel, then that dog is going to get released from the program. Now, if we have a dog, because again, all dogs are born with some level of a prey drive because they are dogs, you may not just see it, and may manifest in different ways, but it's just a good example. The prey drive, we have some dogs that, you kind of have to manage them around that. And so we need to go, what is that manageability like? Who are the people on our waiting list, and can they manage that behavior? Okay. Can they predict when it might happen? So we have some dogs that are multiple time poopers. Okay. I had a release dog. She was the best dog ever. I do have to say, Patty. She literally, every time you took her out, she would poop. Every single time. She would push out a nugget. And if she were to graduate, because we've had some dogs that have that have graduated, we would need to go, okay, we know that she poops every time you take her out. She needs to go to someone who's going to be able to clean that up. Is not, isn't on a very, or might be on a very structured schedule. Someone who's going to be able to handle that, okay? So the prey drive too. Someone who's going to have to be aware that this is a potential to happen because we can predict when it usually happens and we can train the graduate how to be prepared with that. But we're not going to put that with someone, a graduate, who they see that the squirrel is there, they have to process it and then tell their body to move, and the dog is already reacting on it. That dog is not going to be a good fit for that person. So we got to take all of those types of things into consideration, but predictability is really the biggest thing we need to figure out. So the reasons for release, you guys know there's a whole variety of reasons dogs can get, but it comes down to what is the level, what is the predictability. The big question is, can a person with a disability manage this behavior? When I was an apprentice, and we have a whole bunch of apprentices right now, they are struggling through this too. And I think this is also something that a lot of puppy raisers struggle with. And as we progress into the next puppy, if you guys are deciding to raise again, our philosophy changing is flipping slightly. It's still the same, but our focus is going to be a little bit different here, okay? And this is where we go, oh my gosh. And I talked so much, I totally got way ahead of myself and forgot where I was going with this. It's easy for us, the command-wise, that's where I was going with this, commands. We get so focused on commands that the flashy dog that's like, I can sit, I can down, I can heel, I can side, I can look, have this amazing eye contact, but then do all these other behaviors. We think commands are what makes a dog be successful, okay? And it's actually not commands at all. And this is this kind of transition that we're going to. We're looking at general aspects that involve commands, okay? The commands are definitely important, but there's these core behaviors or reactions to their environment that the dogs need to be. Because what's easy for us to manage can be very difficult for a person with a cognitive delay, who has balance issues, things like that. And so it can be really, well, the dog is easy for me to manage, and it's easy for my 3-year-old or my 5-year-old granddaughter, walks them all the time, but you're not going to place them. So many other factors are going to play into this because they aren't you and they aren't your granddaughter. They are other people with whole different sets of expectations and strengths and weaknesses and different living environments and all of that kind of stuff that we have to take into consideration to go, is this dog appropriate? Can the people who are on our wait list manage this behavior? The second big question is, since there are no perfect dogs, how predictable are the dog's behavior? Which I just went into significantly. We want it to be predictable. If we can predict it, it is way more easy for us to place a dog. If a dog is unpredictable with certain behaviors, that's when we start to go, oh, we're not going to take a chance. Suspicious barking is probably the bane of every puppy raiser's and trainer's existence, because we can have these phenomenal dogs that on occasion will randomly bark inappropriately, meaning on leash at a store, or in the car, they might bark or growl at someone, okay? When we have a dog that's like that and we can't predict when it's going to happen, we start to go, who are the people on our waiting list? What is the lifestyle of these people? Do we have someone who's going to set that dog up for success and keep them in that range that if they do bark, it's not going to be out in public, okay? And so it's a big Tetris. It's a puzzle of us putting lots of pieces together. We wish that it could just be, this is such a great dog and you're a great person. Bam, magic happens. Nope, So much goes into it. Okay, but the puppy I raised would never do that. So here's one of the things that also happens with puppy raisers. You guys get the little puppies from 8 weeks of age. You try your hardest. You do everything we ask you to do. And then what happens is the dog turns in for professional training and they go crazy. And they're like, they never did that. I had this with a puppy that never barked at my house. Ever barked at my house. But as soon as he would go into any other person's house, he would do this alarm bark, baying. It was bad. Never with me. Okay. Now here's the thing. He learned in my house. That behavior was naturally under there. Okay. But he learned at my house, this is what you don't bark. Okay. But out in the world, because it was naturally there, he's like, this is what I do elsewhere. Because the patterning wasn't there, he got released from the program. So, and it's kind of like when you think about kids who go to, when you go to college, okay, and you have some kids that get right in and study and do all the things that they need to do, and then you have other kids that are like, ha ha ha, mom's not around, I'm going crazy, and they have a very bad first year, because they have to learn through that. But we don't have time for dogs to adjust through things because of the length of their life anyway. It just doesn't work for some dogs to mature out of things. We've got to release them. Okay, so there is no perfect dog. What we need you guys to do is to follow the rules. Try your best. Be consistent. It's not going to be perfect. You're going to accidentally be inconsistent on something. It's going to happen. There's certain things you're going to love teaching the dogs, other things that you're like, oh, I'm not such a fan of this. And so that's real life right there, but you've got to try and be as consistent as possible. You have to be persistent and keep thinking about, what do I need to do? How do I progress through this? You have to be flexible in that if you are a person that is a very type A, by the book, structured, very like you have to do it kind of a thing, and you get a submissive puppy, you have to go, I have to change my emotional state to help the dog. If you are a type of a puppy raiser that's really soft and very helping and you get a bulldog, you're going to have to go, okay, I need to firm up. I need to be more consistent. I need to be more firm, more objective, set the dog up for success. It's not going to be perfect. You just have to try. That's why we're also here to kind of help you with this. So that is my PowerPoint. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing. All right, hopefully, Katie, you were able to start hearing. I'm looking here. Okay, so does can a companion trade dogs between regions to increase their chances of placement? It's not something that we tend to do, just because there's a variety of factors that play into that, but then you've also got a whole transitional thing. Now, we do it with hearing dogs and PTSD, so that is something that does happen. But for our general rule, because while there might be, we would have to be really confident in the dog for that to happen. Usually what we do is we trade people. We don't necessarily trade dogs. We've gotten actually a good number of dogs for a variety of reasons from New York, have come up to us to, and went through our team trainings and things like that. So that's actually more what happens is we trade. So the people come to us, not us sending the dogs out to other people. Okay. I'm looking here. It looks like we had some questions. So, Michelle, I have you up first here. Do you have a question?
If you're talking about Michelle Kelsey, no, I'm good to go. This has been fantastic. Thank you.
Okay, great. Fantastic. And then Joanne Neiman also has her hand up.
Yes.
Sometimes, okay, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. I just got a release dog, the first one in a long, long time. And I got her in November. She's 2 years old in December. And come Thanksgiving, we had a house full of, company, and she started peeing in different places. And then Thanksgiving, the people left, Thanksgiving, everything calmed down. Christmas came and she did it again. So I took her to the vet to do urinalysis. The suspicion was she had a slight urinary infection. She went on an antibiotic, and hopefully that's going to take it. But my question is there any data or anything that you all get back from puppy raisers that the dogs, because I know in the kennels that's what they do. They have to use their kennels for urinating and pooping. No pooping in our problem here. It's just pee.
Right. Right.
So I'm just kind of, and just the other day, Thursday night, she was sitting next to me. We were having dinner, and we were trying to get this routine, us as the parent, to, okay, 7 o'clock, let's take her outside to go pee, because she's eaten her dinner, she's drank some water, she had her playtime. Well, we skipped it. And the next thing I knew, she jumped up, she left the room, and I go, oh my gosh, where'd she go? And she went to the other room to do the toilet.
Yeah.
So are we a behavior problem here, or do we have anything else?
My gut probably tells, okay, so what I would first do is reach out to the puppy program manager, or whoever you spoke to when you adopted the dog. Because to clarify, you did not raise her?
Yes, I did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Okay, so then
Yeah.
the history. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I know this dog.
Okay, you know the history.
And
so
she never, ever, I got her when she was 3 months old. She never had an accident in the house.
what I would suggest, well, one, you can reach out to the puppy program manager, whoever released the dog to you, and to find out did you guys notice anything happening in professional training. Now, sometimes, so this is where sometimes my gut says it's behavioral, okay? And so probably what just needs to happen, you could try this, is one, see if they notice any what we call indiscriminate toileting happening during professional training. So sometimes we will see that, but usually it's a fear-based thing, but she knows you're home, so that's where it's a little weird. Now, when we have dogs, so when the dogs graduate or the dogs get released from the program, what we even tell our graduates, when you get them home, put them on a more treat them like they were puppies again, to kind of get them to remember when and where to toilet, because we get them out of sync with schedules, things like that. The only other thing that I would suggest would be, and sometimes they pick this up, is what the North Central region calls water gorging, and that they learn to love water, or they will constantly always be going and drinking. And so then what happens if you have a dog that doesn't have they're structurally fine, but they've got kind of like a weak sphincter kind of a thing, that as soon as they have any sense of needing to go, they have an accident. So really what I would recommend doing is to start treating her like she was a puppy again. It will not go as long as when you had her as a puppy. It should go quicker, but on leash, crated, when not supervised, don't let her wander out the room. But then the other big thing is monitoring her water intake. Did she learn in professional training that she loves water and she's just drinking too much and can't hold it? And you may not even realize it, especially if you have other dogs in the house. That's always the hardest thing. But I would just say try that and then go into more. But I would reach out and see if they noticed any urinary issues. Yeah.
All right. Thank you.
No problem. All right. Okay, so what about a co-raiser for adopting? Do they need to put a request for a release dog? And do they have to? So co-raisers do not have to pay the adoption fee. Okay. And they do not have to fill out an application because most likely they went through the phone interview and they were, no, co-raising situations is similar to puppy raising situation. Unless the person says it's a co-raiser and they actually never handled the puppy. But if you like really have a true co-raising situation, then absolutely, they have the same, how it works. And now there is a little bit of different because some regions that have prisons have starters and finishers. And how I'm understanding it for those programs and for everything, priority goes to the person who has had the dog the longest. Okay. So in a co-raising situation, who either you can designate this is the person who's going to have first choice of adopting the dog back, which is usually what we do in the North Central region, or we go by who's the person who had the dog the longest. Then Canine Companions goes, you're the first person who gets to say yes or no. If you are part of the prison programs where you are starting or finishing the dog, there is there's a caveat to who gets first choice on that one. And so if you are a starter or a finisher wanting to start or finish and then adopt a release dog from a prison program, is talk to the puppy program manager about that, and they can tell you what is the hierarchy for who gets to adopt a prison dog. Any other questions? This is why I had to leave it at hour and a half. So my next session.
Suzanne, I have my hand up.
Oh, sure. Yes.
Okay. So I have Candu, who is going to be turned in February 14th to Northeast Region. He is an intact male, high energy intact male.
Okay.
What would you recommend in the last month? You know, I've been coming to doing the classes in person, virtual, all of that. Well, in addition to, of course, working on excitable greetings, what should I focus on in these last few weeks? If you were, could give me advice.
I would give you advice that you are going to focus on loving him and doing the same things that you have been doing. We get this question a lot, and it's a great question. The big thing is that you don't want to do a lot of changes or like amp up on something, and start drilling them, because then that kind of throws them off a little bit by why are you acting kind of different?
Right.
And so we tend to say, just keep going with the flow. Now, if there's something that you're like, okay, I've been kind of negligent about working on visit, or I've been negligent on side, you can take those opportunities to kind of fine tune. But really, like, needing to get them out more or expose them to something specific, nope. I think the best thing that you guys can do through the last month is just try and be consistent with everything and just continue what you had been normally doing, because that really is going to set the dogs much better up for success, instead of going, oh my gosh, now we're changing my feeding schedule and you're making me get up at 6 a.m. We don't want to all of a sudden get them like, you're acting different.
Okay.
You just want to be the same.
Right. So this is one thing I was concerned about.
Sure.
He's very highly motivated, and he does a lot of, like attention-seeking behavior, like an unwanted lap. I have not taught him lap because I figure he gets so crazy when there's food in the picture that he's not calm enough. I'm working on visit. I can do, kind of do visit, but when he was young, he did a lot of attention-seeking barking, which he doesn't do anymore. So I did not teach him to speak, and I taught him lap. And I just figured when he goes to professional training, let them figure out how best to do lap. I don't want to do it wrong. What do you think?
Right. So in that situation, so what you just described to me, what I would say would be, is to work on just a lot of calm behaviors, okay? And so what I'm going to recommend is this, and this is something that we as puppy program managers are starting to incorporate more. is to get like when you're sitting down watching TV or eating or doing whatever, you're going to be in the house doing something, put a little bed on the floor, a towel size. So nothing huge. It could be fluffy, it could be whatever. You can kind of see in the back there is a mat that we use a lot in professional training. So the battery on this camera is on the remote. I can't. It's
No,
dead.
I can see it, and we do that,
Okay.
like right now he's
Perfect.
on his bed because we told him to go on his bed,
Which is a bath mat.
which is a bath mat.
Perfect.
And at that, we do that at mealtime or, and he's very, very good. And we're also working on for longer periods of time. I've not taken him indoors to a restaurant, only like
Right.
an outdoor eating place.
Yeah.
So, I was trying to decide, okay, before I turn him in, should I get him to go bring him into a restaurant? So he's like, because he's so food motivated and he's so friendly that I was like, I don't think I'm setting him up for success by bringing him indoors to a restaurant. He's not one of those low key chill dogs.
Yeah. No, I wouldn't start going out into different places unless you feel really confident, it's going to be laid back kind of a thing. Honestly, I would just keep working on what you're working on in your house because those things are going to transition to other things, especially when you have a confident dog. Because usually they're like, I don't care where I'm at, it's just as long as I get rewarded somehow, So just work on your downstays. Just keep working on that because that really is that self-control is probably the biggest thing that helps the trainers out in professional training is a dog that can be put on a mat and they're going to just hang out.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, we got to. Now I'm going to go up here. So, okay, so I think, Susan, I just answered your question. And then, Joanne, I think your hand is still up from before. But feel free to unmute if you had any other questions. I'm going to go back to the questions here. I'm going to stop recording because I'm going to